Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because, well, we're unpacking some truly eye-opening material. We're diving straight into Chapter 3 of the book, Perverting Our Reproductive Nature. Today, we're impartially examining the author's incredibly critical argument that modern dating apps, the ones we usually think of as modern-day matchmakers, they're actually gamified, highly engineered marketplaces. We're going to look at the data, the psychology, and the cultural shifts the book outlines to see exactly how these platforms operate under the hood.
Okay, let's dive into this with a massive what if. What if the apps designed to help us find love are actually programmed to keep us lonely? That's literally the central premise of this entire chapter. The author argues that we're lonelier than ever right now, despite being more connected than ever, and suggests this is absolutely no coincidence. According to the book, platforms that are sold to us as tools for genuine human connection actually function to monetize our loneliness. Think about it. If they actually facilitated lasting relationships, they'd lose their user base, right? Instead, the author claims they're specifically engineered to keep us perpetually searching.
So that brings us to Section 1, the casino of love and dopamine engineering in dating.
To understand how this works, the author introduces this really compelling metaphor of the dating app as a casino. And this brings us right to the gamification of dating. The platforms use literal slot machine mechanics to keep users engaged. Think about the physical act of swiping left or right for a second. The author points out that this quick, almost completely unconscious motion perfectly mimics pulling the lever on a slot machine. The momentary thrill of a potential match, or even just seeing someone who fits your type, delivers this intermittent dopamine reward. The book argues that this quick dopamine hit actually becomes way more addictive than the desire for a real relationship. It's just an engineering marvel designed to keep you hooked on the game itself.
Which leads us into Section 2, a tale of two swipes and the engineered inequality.
So the crucial point is that to truly grasp this engineering, we have to recognize that this game is absolutely not played on a level playing field. The author contrasts two fundamentally different realities happening on these exact same apps. For women, the experience is often one of extreme abundance, which leads to this overwhelming need to sort and filter. It's like searching for a genuine needle in an absolute haystack of low-effort attention. But for men, the experience is starkly different. It's characterized by starvation, endless silence, and honestly, a feeling of complete invisibility.
And the statistics the author cites absolutely back this up right from the starting line. The user base is massively skewed, roughly 67% men to just 33% women. So the pool is entirely imbalanced before a single swipe even happens. According to the book, this automatically creates a highly competitive environment where men are fighting desperately just for basic visibility.
But what's really fascinating is how that initial imbalance translates into actual everyday behavior. Referencing a widely cited Quartz study of Tinder data, the book highlights a massive disparity in how we swipe. Men are swiping right on over 50% of profiles. They're casting this massive, unselective net. Women, on the other hand, they are highly selective, swiping right on only 4.5% of profiles.
So when you combine that user imbalance with the actual swiping behavior, you get what the author calls the swipe-to-date math. And honestly, it's a brutal funnel. A man with a 0.6% match rate literally has to swipe at least 50 times just to get a single match. He's often swiping endlessly for absolutely zero return. Meanwhile, a woman with a 10% match rate typically only needs to swipe about 10 times to get a match. The platform promises equal opportunity, right? But the math tells a totally different story of an engineered divide.
And man, it gets even more skewed. 80%. The book cites internal data revealing a profound psychological distortion happening on these platforms. Women rate a staggering 80% of men as below average in attractiveness. Now, mathematically, that's impossible, right? But the author notes it's incredibly revealing psychologically. It basically means a tiny fraction of top-tier men receive almost all of the attention. That leaves the vast majority of men feeling essentially invisible, while women are left feeling like, well, all the good men are taken.
Now, according to the book's analysis, this isn't just human nature meeting technology. No, it's the exact environment these apps need to thrive financially. Let's look at Section 3, The House Always Wins, and monetizing the desperate.
That emotional cost we just outlined, it rapidly becomes a financial one. Men end up bearing the brunt of the spending on these platforms out of sheer desperation. The numbers show 41% of men report paying for dating services, compared to just 29% of women. Men are out there buying boosts, super likes, and premium filters, not necessarily because those features guarantee a relationship, but because they literally feel they have to pay just to be seen by anybody.
The author actually goes further,
detailing claims of highly deceptive tactics used to monetize this exact loneliness. The book points to practices like sending fake new like notifications to non-subscribers, or algorithms that intentionally hide non-paying profiles. Even the use of bots or inactive accounts to simulate activity and trigger people into buying subscriptions. Plus, there are these restrictive terms of service clauses that basically limit users' legal recourse. The text describes the whole thing as a highly profitable algorithmic mirage. Which brings us to this seriously chilling summary from the author. Dating app companies profit more from your prolonged loneliness than your lasting love. Just think about it. If the algorithm actually helped you find a permanent relationship, you'd delete the app tomorrow. To the company, a successful match is literally a lost customer. Moving away from the cold math and the monetization for a second, let's jump into Section 4, the paradox of choice and the psychological fallout. Because this swipe-first culture, it fundamentally changes how we actually view each other.
The author cites psychologist Barry Schwartz and his concept of decision fatigue. You see, we tend to think that having more choices automatically means more freedom. But Schwartz argues that a massive overload of choices actually leads to anxiety, total dissatisfaction, and emotional paralysis. On a dating app, the algorithm actively trains you to believe that someone's slightly better, slightly funnier, or slightly more attractive is always just one more swipe away.
And this decision fatigue entirely bleeds into our everyday lived experiences. People just aren't connecting, mainly because they're completely overwhelmed by the options. This breeds a culture of constant ghosting. And it's not necessarily because people are inherently cruel, but because the system itself dehumanizes the interaction. It leads to incredible relational burnout, a massive rise in cynicism, and this really tragic tendency to treat actual, living human beings as temporary, easily replaceable profiles.
Let's move to Section 5, From Community to Code, and see how this builds into the overarching narrative of the entire book. Remember, perverting our reproductive nature is really about the systematic dismantling of human connection and design, and Chapter 3 is a vital puzzle piece in that broader argument.
The author brilliantly contrasts how we used to meet with how we meet now. Historically, dating was deeply embedded in shared communities. Churches, neighborhoods, local schools. You already shared a world and trust networks with someone long before you ever actually dated them. But now, dating is driven by commerce, algorithms, and extraction. We're out here trying to build bridges completely from scratch between total strangers, all mediated by an interface that is fundamentally designed to extract our time and our money.
And this brilliantly illustrates the author's core thesis. If you recall the arguments we covered from the earlier chapters of the book, we can trace a really clear progression here. Chapter 1 argued that birth control severed sex from consequence. Chapter 2 argued that pornography severed sex from relationship. And now, here in Chapter 3, the author is arguing that dating apps have completely severed human connection from community. The point being made is that each technological advancement bends us further and further away from our original relational design.
And the author warns that this trajectory definitely doesn't stop here. The book teases upcoming chapters by pointing out that treating people as replaceable profiles paves the way for the ultimate isolation, AI companions. If we're already conditioned to interact with screens and algorithms for our intimacy, an entirely artificial market of virtual girlfriends and emotionally responsive bots is basically the terrifying logical next step. We're looking at relationships built entirely on ones and zeros.
The author summarizes this entire chapter with this incredibly dark, reflective quote. "Welcome to the perverted landscape that is modern dating. We hope you enjoy your stay. We hope you never escape." It's a very stark warning about a system that's purposefully designed to keep you trapped in a continuous loop of seeking without ever truly finding what you're looking for.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought to take away as we move toward the later chapters of the book. If our algorithms are literally programmed for profit and our platforms monetize our loneliness, how on earth do we break the cycle and reclaim the genuine, deeply rooted human connection we were originally designed for? It's a massive question. Look, if you found this explainer as fascinating as I did and you want to explore these arguments deeper, I highly encourage you to check out the interactive companion site at pervertingourreproductivenature.com. You can support the author there and dive into the rest of the book. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what's on your screen.